Welcome to Admin Setup for Event Status. The event statuses are displayed here on the home page under Office Events. For business type tax preparation, we have lobby, tax preparation, cashier, reviewer, and so on. And you can customize these. You can change the names, you can change the order, you can create new, you can eliminate any of these you'd like. And where you do that is going to be in your admin event status, and it's going to default to all business types. So what we're going to do is we're going to focus in on tax prep to begin with. So I'm going to select tax preparation, business type tax prep. That's what I was just displaying on the home page. And I'm going to attempt to go through here and define each one of these columns for you, and then we'll go ahead and show you how you can edit and add new event statuses. So to begin with, this first column over here, we have a checklist. That we're going to describe in a separate video. The next column is a predefined note. We're also going to describe that in a second video under event status. So we're really going to, in this video, we're going to begin here with system event status. System event status, there are 51 system event statuses, and you can only have one system event status per business type. So if I scroll down here to the bottom, hit the drop down, these are all my system event statuses. So the ones that are common and are identical, we have them listed right here. Say, for example, miscellaneous event due date 1, 2, 3 through 8. These are exactly the same setup. Other than that, they all have kind of unique features to them, say cashier, check pickup. And what you'd like to do is if you go to your home page, the only way to see what kind of unique features they might have, say, for example, lobby. You can see the different, an access code, a year, a name. In this lobby, we have retention, difficulty, time, user, appointment. So this is pretty unique to when the client gets checked in, and this is kind of the items that we like to see in the lobby. So each one of these events has different features. So what you want to do is probably click on each one and just see what kind of column headings are displaying based on, say, for example, drop-off, tax preparation. For the most part, they're all going to have the access code, which is typically the social. They're all going to have a year. They're all going to have a name. They're all going to have a note field. And that's what you normally would need when you're setting up your workflow. But once you get good at this, you can actually look here and see, hey, I would kind of like to see maybe the due date of the return. So as you see here, I don't see this in this column, in any of these columns here, but if I actually go down on my pending client, I actually have a column that says due date, and it also lists the type of return. So I just want to let you know that each one of these system event statuses is unique. So they're pretty identical, but they all have, some may have more columns, some have less columns. So it's kind of, what we did is we tried to create a system event status based on the status that it's in. So for example, in return pickup, you probably want the phone number to display because you probably need to call the client to let them know their tax return is in. So let me go back here now to admin, event status. And again, I'm going to select tax preparation. So that's what we do for a system event status. So again, there's 51 of those. You can't, if you have more than 51 events you want to display on the home page, unfortunately, you're limited at this time to 51. Hopefully that's enough for you. Business type, obviously you're going to identify what business type that event status goes to. Custom event status, this is where you can change the name. So for example, I'm looking down here under, I have down here waiting on signatures. That was what we eventually created, that system event status. That's hard-coded. You cannot change the name of that. But we wanted to call it pending client. We wanted it to display in the drop-down and on my home page as pending client. So we just hit the edit pencil, and then we add the name, or we can change the name. So this is only going to be, you're identifying what system event status you're going to use. This is what you actually want to display the name as on your home page and in your drop-downs. And then we save it again. Next column is ordinal. That's how we want them to display in the order on the home page and in the drop-downs. So I'm going to pull this other menu up. This is a very complicated admin page. There's a lot going on, so it's going to be helpful if I have two windows here. So let me just switch this over to tax preparation real quick, since that's what we're talking about. And I'm going to minimize my window. So if you see here, the ordinal, so we have lobby, we have this line. If you look here, I actually used a system event status, and all I wanted to do is draw a line because I wanted to make it look, as you want, pretty to the eye on the home page. So I have a line here. So I kind of I group certain statuses together that I think should be grouped together, and then I separate them with a line to make it easier in the workflow process. So I have a line here. I'm using actually miscellaneous 8, and all I did is draw a line. So that's what the line right here, and you look, ordinal is 0. I want the next to be 20, or the next one in the process is going to be lobby. If you look right here, lobby is next, ordinal is 20. So you see how they're labeled. When you're setting this up, I strongly recommend using increments of at least 10, if not 20. So because typically your ordering is going to change. So what you think might look good today may not look good tomorrow, and you want to change the order. So you don't want to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, or you're going to find yourself changing the order continually, whereas now I could just easily say I want to put cashier up here. I can easily just put it as number 15, and I don't have to change my whole order of all my event statuses. Next column, we have inactive. That's just if you no longer are using a system status anymore, all you do is hit the edit pencil and check the box inactive. That'll remove it from your home page and then any drop downs. So once you use a system event status, if it's linked to any client file, you cannot delete it. You have to make it inactive. Recurrence days. Recurrence days is normally going to be used for bookkeeping. So I'm going to go ahead and change my business type to bookkeeping right here so I can show you what I'm talking about, bookkeeping. So as you see here, we have recurrence days means that I want this event to occur, in this case, weekly payroll every 7 days, biweekly payroll every 14 days, monthly payroll every 30 days. So I want to be reminded, for doing my monthly payroll every month. So as I close out an event, this event's called, the customized event's called monthly payroll. As I close that out, it'll repeat itself 30 days from now. So it'll show up on my home page in 30 days. So I'll be reminded to do my monthly payroll again. So typically, from my experience, recurrence days has only been used for bookkeeping business type. Notification days, that would be come into play if you want to be the person who's assigned to this client file. If you want them to be notified with an assigned task in their user overview, my assigned task, telling them that this event needs to be completed, you'd put the number of days here, notification days. So if this event becomes due, say, on February 1st, and it shows up on your home page, and you want to be notified 2 days afterwards, just in case it hasn't been completed yet, if you put a number 2 here in the weekly payroll, then say February 1st comes on February 3rd, it actually would show up in this user's assigned task. If you want to be notified prior to it becoming due, you'd put a negative number. And when I say the user's assigned task, or the user it would go to, let me get into a client's file. So I'm going to get into a client file real quick. The person who's assigned to this client file, when I say that, that's this person right here. In this case, Mark Preco is the user. So if I have something in the notification days, if I have a -2, Mark actually will receive an assigned task 2 days prior to this date right here. The start date's 11/22, so on 11/20, I actually would have had an assigned task going to me saying tax preps and event status is going to be due in 2 more days. And so I'd be notified prior to it actually becoming due. Typically, based on my experience, I don't see people using the event status very often, the notification days very often. Highlighting, let me get back to my home page here. Okay, so highlighting, what that means is right here, if you look here, drop off assigned, we have it highlighted in red. So that means you want that to stand out. So in our tax office, drop off, I like to keep an eye on those. I don't want my preparers to not be aware that there's drop-offs if they have nothing to do to start working on them. So we actually highlight those in red. I do the same thing with my rejects. Anything that I like to keep an eye on to make sure it's going to get completed timely, I highlight it in red. So pending my to-do list, those are my things that need to be done in the office, need signatures. That's something I want to keep track of too. But my normal workflow, lobby, tax prep, cashier, reviewer, these are things that happen all the time. I don't need to keep an eye on them because they're only going to be in that event status for a short period of time and then they're moved out. So that's how we do it, but whatever you think is very important and you want to highlight it, just check that box, highlight. Note required. This is event status that you're requiring your preparers or your support staff to enter a note if it falls into that note, if it falls into that event status. Let me go back to tax prep here. So we have under note required, I do that for pending client. So when I move this status to pending client, a red flag is going to pop up saying note required. So that's reminding that preparer, whoever moved it to pending client, enter a note. Same way with return pickup, need signatures. Anywhere where I want, if that preparer is not going to be here tomorrow, I want to know why that client file is in that status. So note required, I strongly encourage you guys to use that. It's going to help with the documentation process in your office. Next column here is billing rate. I don't believe this is used very often. I try to focus too much on it, but billing rate, if you want to track basically the time, track the time it's in each status and put a dollar amount to each status. I just put an example of $1 here for under tax preparation. So if you say your tax preparation status is worth $100 an hour, if you put $100 in here, you actually can track, one, it'll track how long it was in the tax prep status and then how much you should charge them based on billing for $100 an hour. So if I go into a client file here, I'm going to go into Jack Breslin's file, and I actually have them in the status of tax prep. This column right here, it's checked billable. The billing rate's $1. The billable amount right here. So I'm at 38 cents. It's been in there for 38 minutes. And also right down here, total hourly billable amount right here. These are matching up. Now, if I want to charge for both reviewing and track review, if I bill $50 an hour for reviewing and $100 an hour for tax prep, I would set that up in admin, and this would give me the grand total right here. So what we kind of do in our office is I keep track of the hours, the amount of time spent on tax prep. And so when I'm billing, when I'm using my tax software, we bill by form. If it shows $200 down here, and if I had if I was actually charging $100 an hour, I would be able to see the actual amount right here, total amount spent in tax prep. And if these numbers don't match, then maybe I need to start charging more, or maybe I'm charging too much, but I doubt that in our tax office. So this is kind of, you could use this as just as a reference to see what your tax software says you should be charging based on forms. Is it actually coming into play based on the amount of time you're spending in, say, tax preparation, or if you want to also put an amount toward reviewer? That's what we're using that feature for. Now, if you really want to use this for billing and charge your customers based on how much time it's in each one of these statuses, there is a report called Management Report. It's under billable event status, and it'll actually generate per client how much time you're spending per client in each one of these billable statuses. Okay, let me go back here. Now that's under the billing rate. This next column, disable account field requirement error check. And you're asking, what is that? So let me go back to a client file. And right here under account information, we've put together certain fields that you cannot move them. You cannot change the status unless certain fields are complete. So for example, difficulty is one, referral is one, user prep time. Those fields, these 4 fields have to be completed. They had to be completed to move it to the next status. Okay, so if you don't need those fields completed, normally that would come into play if you're doing something other than tax preparation. I mean, I encourage you, if you're doing tax preparation as a business type, to fill these fields out, because they are going to help you in the future, so you know how hard the returns are, or how the person was referred to. But if you're not concerned with those, I'm going to show you how you can shut those controls off. So right now I have it set up. So if I try to move this to, say, cashier, I'm going to get a red flag saying you need to fill out the return prepare referral type, prep time, or difficulty. So I don't have the difficulty filled out, so that's why I got this red flag. Now I'm going to go back, and under cashier, I'm going to say I can move it to cashier, and I can shut that control off. So I'm going to check this box, save it. Now when I come back here, now I'm going to try to move it again, cashier, and I save it. And it allows me, even though I don't have the difficulty field. So I just shut those controls off. So this would probably come into play, say, for bookkeeping, or if you use it just to track business contacts, difficulty, referral, those have no meaning for those type of business types. So that definitely would come into play, and that would be very helpful that you don't have these this extra nuisance that you have to complete these fields, so you can shut that off in admin. Next column, last column here, add-on creation of account. So now when you create, the way it's always worked in the past is if you create a new client or you add a new year, lobby, the Office Event lobby is always going to create. Okay, you can go ahead and you can, and I encourage you to always have the lobby create, but you can shut that off, and you can also then tag other events that you want to create automatically when you add a new account, add a new client, or you add a new year. So if I add a new client and I want drop-off always to create along with lobby, I would just come in here, hit the edit pencil, and I check the box, add-on creation of account. And so whenever I add a new client or I add a new year for a client, my event status is lobby, and drop-off will automatically create. This could come into play. I can't see it really come into play too much on tax prep, because typically lobby is going to be the only one you want to have create for tax prep. But for bookkeeping, so if you have bookkeeping clients that all you do is monthly payroll, you do sales tax, you do 940, you do 941. So every time I create a new client, then I would come in here and I want to make sure those 4 events automatically get created. Or every time I add a new year for the client, I want to make sure those 4 automatically get created. Now you can always manually create more events, but this would be very quick setup process, so you can make sure that the critical events that you always want to have created, you just would come in here and check those boxes. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to show you how to actually create a couple events for a select business type. So we have a business type called, I created a business type called IRS resolution. All right, so you can refer back to admin business type, how to create a business type. But once you create one, this is what you're going to have. You're going to have a blank page under event status. So now you're going to need to come in here and create some event statuses. So the first thing I'm going to do is, and again, I want it to make it pretty viewing to my eye. So I'm going to select I'm going to go down here to miscellaneous 1. I'm going to select my business type, IRS resolution. I'm going to make it draw a line. So to draw a line, all I do is hit the shift and then line, shoot it out here, and I'm going to say this is ordinal, and I might just make this 10 to make it easy on myself. I don't make it inactive, recursive days, none, notification days. I don't need to check any of these boxes. I just hit save. The next, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create lobby, okay, and I'm going to call it IRS resolution, and obviously I might not have all my people actually walk in the lobby, so I'm just going to call this setup, and I'm going to make this 20 increments of 10, and I'm going to say I want this always to add on creation. So whenever I add a new client, I always want it to at least say setup, and I want the person to fall into setup. All right. Next, maybe I'll call something information received, and I'm just going to use miscellaneous, because for the most part, all I need to know is the client's name and how much time it sat in there and the note. So miscellaneous is a perfect event for that. Again, I select the business type IRS resolution. I'm going to say received information. Okay, and I'm going to ordinal 30, and I'm not going to say add-on creation of account, because I'm just going to stick with just a setup on there. And next, I'll do one more miscellaneous 3. IRS resolution, and I'm just going to say, I'll call this IRS follow-up. All right, and we don't do IRS resolutions, so I'm not sure exactly which event statuses you'd want to create here. I'm just trying to do this as an example. I'm going to save this, and lastly, I'm going to make a nice and pretty, so I'm going to draw a line again, and I'll use miscellaneous 5. Now, if I try to use a miscellaneous, say, 2 that I've already used here, it's going to give me an error saying you've already used a system event status once for this business type. You can't do it again. So as I said, there's 51 system event statuses. You cannot go over 51. You cannot do a duplicate of one of these event statuses for the same business type. So I'm going to do miscellaneous, I guess I can do 4, IRS resolution, and I'm going to draw a line. And I'll label this 50. Oh, one last thing. You should always have an event status called complete, because typically, most likely, you're always going to complete an event. So we'll go ahead and put complete in here. And I'm actually going to do this above the line here. So this is why it's nice that I have increments of 10. So at 45, save it. Now I'm going to go to my home page. And I hit IRS resolution. And then here we have it. So I have nice line here. Everything looks kind of nice. Setup, received information, IRS follow-up. If you notice complete's not there, complete is a unique system event status. It's designed to not display on the home page, but it will display in the drop-down when you're moving inside a client file when you're changing the status. Complete will be there, but it will not display on the home page. So you're not going to be able to see all your completed clients. You might be able to see that in the daily log, but the actual system event status will not display. So that's all I have for the admin event status setup. Regarding the predefined notes and the checklist, we have separate videos for that. Thank you.